Hello world. Patricia O'Connor here and Frida Reba Darcy. Today on the Bonsai balcony, it is Saturday. It is a beautiful Saturday. Kind of cool, but not too cool. Very, very nice. We did a show just a few days ago. Yeah, look at that. Isn't that nice? Very worthy of the price of admission, as they say. A couple of days ago, I did a show called Big Trees. Big old trees. We have our share of big trees, but we also have a lot of tiny trees, small trees. We have Shohin and Mame size bonsai trees, and it's kind of hard to figure. But you know, if you like one, you like it for this or that. You know, I love these big bald cypress. I love my big old ponderosa, and I dearly love my oaks, my coastal oak, my cork bark oak, my literati jet pine. My. But here's the thing: the other side, the complete opposite side of bonsai, is also very impressive. And you can have so much love for bringing along or growing or just plunking down whatever and saying, load it on the trailer, boys, this is coming on with me. And you can love that for what it is, big old huge bald cypress trees. And at the same time, you can love just as much the other side. This thing has been a bonsai almost as long as it's been a sprout. It's probably 2 years old now. We put motion in it. We put this in a little wabi-sabi pot, and probably 3 or 4 of these would fit in the palm of my hand, though I'm clumsy, so I wouldn't want to put 3 or 4 of them in the palm of my hand for fear of something. But year 1, this was most enjoyable. Year 2, more so. Look at those candles coming out of there. You see that little green distance in between last year's foliage? I'm talking about the branch that's coming off from the left. That wasn't even there last year. But what we'll do this year is next month, we'll put our scissors in that little bit of break you see in between the new growth and last year's growth. We'll nip that off. Then we'll go to the branch on the right and go up to the top where that little candle is coming out. We'll nip that, and then we'll go to the one on the back and we'll nip that, and we'll get all these needles to be smaller this year. But look how pretty that is. I already love this. And it's in a bonsai pot. It gets bonsai treatment. It's in the bonsai vortex, which means all of the things that go along with that is you know, we're in charge of its water. We are in charge of its roots. We are in charge of its feeding. And if it lives or dies, that's kind of on us, and we do the very, very best we can to keep this, and it shows. And when it shows, it's so rewarding. Is this $1 million treat? No, and it really shouldn't be about the money, but I could talk that too. My most expensive tree is not quite as much money as the most expensive maple I've seen so far. And it you know, I'm not the total maple nut, so maybe there, you know, I got a lot to learn there. But the most expensive tree that I've personally been in contact with has been a Shohin maple. A Shohin maple. It would fit in the palm of your hand, and the quality and the care and the expertise and the age and the beauty was just however much you would expect to pay for this or that when done nicely was concentrated down into something was concentrated something down into very, very small. And that kind of love, just, that density, that density of how impressive that was, that's kind of how I would say it. You're just as impressed with it, but condensed. We did this last year, and this is also a good example. You can see we're about to go through next month and do all of our candles. Right now we're feeding. We will pick that food up in a couple of weeks, and then it'll go 30 days without it, and then after that we'll go through and cut all of this guy's candles too. But this is another tree that that's one of Elizabeth Crutenden's pots. They make these trees so beautiful. But look, that's copper wire. We put on a sprout. I mean, a literal sprout. But at the base of it, where it comes out of the ground, those are exposed roots. That guy comes out of the ground with motion going in two different directions and then starts that spiral and that twist. And no, I am not going to remove that wire. I would probably wreck this tree if I even tried. But golly. Mame. I am told mame is Japanese for bean. And I could put several of these in the palm of my hand. It's Saturday. What does that mean? That means tonight we're going to resume our Saturday Night Live Bonsai. And tonight's Bonsai will be part 2 of our Mame show. I'm going to repot a Mame that we started last year. And you have reason. I am very excited about this. And let me just say that I have reason to be. And if you were wondering, it's not a tree it's a tree that's already in a bonsai pot. But we're going to it's still potting season here. And it's in a small enough pot that it needs to be repotted. We should probably swap out that substrate. And we're going to go with a different pot. I'm really excited about what is going to go on tonight on tonight's show. But I wanted to give y'all a look, and this is also a look. I probably watered maybe 2 hours ago, and you can see in this tray that this substrate is still wet. There's not a hole in this. Some of these I did put a hole in. But also I have a wick system on this one because it doesn't have a hole in it, and that goes down to a watering can that's down there. But this tray of substrate was a trick that I learned from Eric at Bonsai. And when these tiny little trees put out a root and it goes into this substrate, that is its hedge against overheating. And this wet substrate also helps to keep the reflection down on these tiny little pots, which can get exceedingly hot. So I don't have to worry about the heat of that pot killing that enormous tree so much. That is an issue with tiny little trees. Their little pots and the amount of soil that they have in them can get in some hellaciously high heat ratio because that tiny little pot is sitting on the surface that's getting really hot, and it'll just absorb it all. So having that on something like this goes a long way towards keeping the pot from getting some degree that would just start wrecking roots. Okay, these are the trees that we started from seed last summer and fall, and as late as into the late winter. These are the ones that we started early spring, and I need to go through there and weed already, but that's 26 more pines. That's cheap to nothing. They're growing in perlite and leftover potting soil. That's more material to work with and every one of them right now fits within fits within Mame. So I have been really enjoying. I've really been enjoying my soiree with the big trees, but I've also thoroughly enjoyed growing the tiny trees. And let's think about it. More and more and more people are consolidating. You don't see as many people who have spreads or as land as what they used to. And people who even have the wherewithal to have a lot of property seem to be a trend now towards paring down, making something smaller and nicer instead of, and easier, making your lifestyle easier. That was part of the reason why I sold a home as a single person and thought this is going to be hard for me. From now on, keeping up with this and making this nice and keeping it nice is going to be hard. I almost wish that I had something that belonged to somebody else and I could pick up the phone and go, hey, you need to replace the microwave. Hey, the toilet's broken. I'm so glad that's not my problem anymore. Ownership was cool, but this is too. And I see that a lot of people are like that, and especially a lot of young people. They're not buying homes the way they used to. That would mean that Bonsai might be harder for them. If it's harder to commit to something like this when it needs a place to be where it's going to get sun or lights and plenty of water. And if you're on somebody else's nickel or somebody else's dime, you don't necessarily have. Where I'm going with this, as I see Mame and show him Bonsai more as the future of Bonsai, which is probably something that's happened for different reasons in the past, in Japan and Vietnam and China and all those places. You probably see a rise and fall of different, of what's popular within the hobby. And I've always had pretty much an equal tug of the heart from the big trees to the small. But I could put hundreds of Mames. I could put hundreds of tiny little bean trees in the space that these three bald cypress occupy. These bald cypress, those oaks, ponderosa, this trident maple. I'm a 65-year-old woman, and those are getting a little harder for me to move. At some point, I will have to go. You're gonna wrench your back in a way you're not gonna be able to get over in a couple of days if you keep pushing these around. At that point, that will also see me shift more and more and more towards little trees. Lucky for me, I love them, and I'm already making stuff that we have to work on now for the next 2 years when it comes to little trees. I could diversify more. There's a lot of pines there. I have quite a few maple varieties growing around here, and I could be collecting seeds for those. And we could start doing little maples and stuff too. But my appreciation for little trees is strong, and I can just not really say enough about how cool they are. And you still get that same amount, and I'm not saying this like it's a lesser in any way. There are quite a few places where the smaller the tree, the more highly desirable they are. And it's almost like some people would look at this and go, that's not bonsai, that's just too big. One, they're not the bonsai police, even if they think they are. And two, there is something to be said for the point of small trees. So to that end, the smaller the better. Bonsai people have always been that way. When you tell somebody that a tree needs to have a really, really wide base, then they start growing them disproportionately wide. And I go out in the woods and find many Japanese black pines whose bases are that wide compared to their height. No, not really. But that is the measure and the mark of a good looking Japanese black pine as done by a total pro in Jonas Dupois. So that's what those look like when done professionally the way they're supposed to be done. My needles could look better in the 2 years that I've had it, but still in all, little trees. I really enjoy them. I think that they're once you learn bonsai, it's easier to get started on bigger trees. I think bigger trees will put up with your nonsense a little longer because they have more reserves and they're less likely to die over heat in a small pot or something. They're less likely to go thirsty and then die quickly. They seem to have more reserves because of the amount of space they take up and the amount of, and the smaller trees, they're harder. So it's kind of stands to reason that you get your balance on bonsai a little and then not swap over, but before you branch over to little trees. But if you're looking at little space, don't let me slow you down. Go to YouTube, type in Mame, type in bean size bonsai, type in tiny bonsai trees, and then name your specimen and just start learning about them. Do like I did. Buy a bunch of seeds, soak them in water for 48 hours, put them in little pots, throw them in a windowsill or under a fluorescent light, and inside of a week you will start seeing sprouts if you keep them misted and hydrated. From that point, take them out in the sunshine, take them out on your patio, take them out on your balcony, take them out in your window, make them in a window box. You're off to the races. And yeah, like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. Our next drop will be Saturday Night Live Bonsai, which we will do in Frida's place in our living room tonight. This is a tree we did a couple of weeks ago. I'm very much in love with this little Shohin ponderosa. It has really great movement coming out of the ground. It's very healthy, very, very vital looking tree, and it is also in one of Elizabeth Clertendon's pots. As I stated, our next drop will be tonight. It will also be a tiny tree oriented show, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And I appreciate you, and Frida appreciates you, and thank you so much for watching. Turned it on.